guys? Welcome to a late edition of the Sports Note for Saturday night, February 4th. And boy, do we have some knuckleheads in the NBA this weekend. And also new lighting setup, so I'm still tweaking it. Hopefully by the next time I'm officially back with you guys, and possibly even later on this weekend, I can actually have this completely corrected. I'm still experimenting with my new equipment. But yeah, we've had three different sets of knuckleheads in the NBA really in the last 48 hours. It started on Thursday. It started on Thursday night with a tussle between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Cleveland Cavaliers, where Donovan Mitchell essentially got punched in the nuts, and then ended up throwing the ball back at the guy, and things kind of spilled out into the first couple of rows of fans. Mitchell got fined $20,000, and the Memphis player ended up getting suspended for a game because it was shown that he initiated it. Mitchell ended up making contact as the player was driving to the hole, and then the player eventually got blocked by Jaron Allen. Mitchell came down with the loose ball after the block, and then that's when everything ensued. As the player fell to the floor, he flung his arm backwards and intentionally hitting Mitchell low. Mitchell and the Memphis player were both tossed out of the game for that, and then the Memphis player was actually assessed a flagrant two, hence why he earned the one-game suspension. Then last night, we actually saw in rather ugly incident where five players ended up getting ejected, and punches were actually thrown. The I did not see that play particularly, and I do know that it was Mo Bamba and Austin Rivers. Okay, so it was Orlando and Minnesota, two teams and you notice the magic, you know, correlation between both of these. These are teams in opposite conferences that only see each other twice a year. Then we actually had yesterday morning, we had the mother of them all. Kyrie Irving requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. Stop me if you've heard this before. Kyrie Irving asking for a trade when things aren't going his way. Irving hit the biggest shot in the history of the Cleveland Cavalier organization on June 19th, 2016, giving the Cavaliers their first NBA championship over the Golden State Warriors. And I'm not sure if you've heard this before. The Golden State Warriors were the first team in the history of the NBA to blow a 3-1 series lead in the NBA Finals and lose. Not to mention losing three straight games on their home floor, where they had not lost, three straight games essentially the entire season. Irving, there are still a lot of people out there, especially in the Cleveland market, that feel, yes, LeBron was deserving, but Irving also could have been deserving for Finals MVP that year. Then the following year, Cavaliers are having a little bit of a championship hangover, despite still being one of the teams to beat in the Eastern Conference. And then Irving necessitates a trade after the year, where he gets shipped to the Boston Celtics, and lo and behold, the Celtics and the Cavaliers meet in the Eastern Conference Finals in 2017, and the Cavs knock out the Celtics on their way to a third consecutive NBA Finals. Golden State did get their revenge in that one. And then the Celtics were actually knocked out in the second round by Milwaukee the year after that, which was his second year in Boston. Then he signs a massive 4-year contract with the Nets after the 2019 playoffs, and he right now is in the final year of that 4-year contract that's paying him a guaranteed $36 million plus. It's just over $36 million, and then becomes an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. And I would certainly think that the Nets would want to try and trade him to get something for him, rather than just let him walk. But this is something where Irving asking for the trade after contract talks broke down, meaning that whomever signs him, if there is a sign and trade involved, Irving has the ability to sign a 2-year, nearly $80 million extension, and who knows if he'll even play out those 2 years at this particular point. He's now turned 30. He's injury prone, and let's go into his litany of other issues. We all know his controversial comments regarding the COVID vaccine. We all know his controversial comments about the Earth being flat. We also know that earlier this year, as a matter of fact, just a couple of months ago, he retweeted information about a book and eventual movie that are highly anti-Semitic, in their words and their viewpoints. He's retweeted conspiracy theories from right-wing nut job Alex Jones. Let's also keep in mind that his refusal for the COVID vaccine meant that he had to sit out really every single game on the schedule last year that would have been played in the state of New York because of vaccine requirements in the state, which means he had to sit out every single home game in Brooklyn, and he also would have had to sit out the 2 games that they've had to play against the Knicks. This means that Irving, between injuries and that, even with the shortened schedule, only played in 29 games last year. Although he did tie his career high in points, I want to say at 27.4, which also I want to say might have been his first year in Brooklyn as well. Irving has been fined the more than $17.6 million in his career. 2 of those incidents were totaling nearly $70,000 for obscene gestures made towards fans. One was with Boston, and then one was his first game with the Nets, where he finally decided to come back to Cleveland because he ended up missing several. I think he ended up missing just about every regular season game when he was with the Celtics for unknown reasons, whether he was hurt or he just decided, I don't want to suit up tonight, and I don't actually want to face the boos and the backlash and everything. LeBron actually, leaves after winning a championship, comes home and gets video packages. Kyrie could have gotten a video package, but with the way that he forced himself out the first time, and the fact that, again, he's a nut job, the reception would have been a lot more mixed than anything. He gave up nearly 382,000 per game that he missed last year because of his refusal to get the COVID vaccine with the requirements in the state of New York. Whomever trades for Kyrie Irving, and we're going to talk about the 4 possibilities that came out in the last 24 hours here in a moment. Kyrie's got his own baggage, but this is something where does any team really want to take that chance, even though there's a very good possibility he makes your team better. He breaks up the Brooklyn Big Three by doing this, where no sympathy at all, considering they've got Mr. Take Your Ball and Go Home hired mercenary Kevin Durant, who basically is the epitome of all this. Durant, remember, couldn't beat the Warriors, and then joined up with them and won 2 titles over the Cavaliers, and then jumped to Brooklyn and really hadn't won shit. And then, of course, James Harden, who really couldn't win a damn thing in Houston. And now that the NBA has kind of outlawed his stanky leg and stick the leg out on a jumper to try and draw contact, as of last year, Harden's certainly not the player that he was. He's very good, but he's also injured. He's injured constantly. Kevin Durant is currently been out since the middle of January with an MCL sprain. So Irving getting out is no huge surprise. The timing of it is, if you're a Nets fan, it sucks. If you're an NBA fan, you're thinking, the trade deadline is on Tuesday. It's a perfect opportunity for him to ask out. Now it's actually just finding a partner stupid enough that want to deal with his baggage. The four teams that have been reported to be interested, and they're all in the Western Conference, which would mean the first time that Irving will have played for a Western Conference team if he's indeed dealt. The first are the Phoenix Suns, which could end up drawing a lot of intrigue considering the Suns, after being the best team in the NBA in the regular season a couple of years ago, the Suns are still very good. They're a top 5 in the West right now. They're 29-26. They're 8-2 in their last 10. But there's also a very strong rumor going around of Devin Booker either being moved at the deadline or at the end of the season, as they continue to shift seemingly every year. Phoenix could be very interesting. The next one is the team right behind the Suns in the standings, and that would be the Dallas Mavericks, and that is extremely intriguing. Hoping that the Suns don't have to give up Spencer Dinwiddie, and there's certainly the idea of pairing Irving as a facilitator and a scorer. Sure, it's going to hurt Luka Doncic's numbers a little bit, but the tandem of those two together could be very, very scary, considering the Mavericks were in the Western Conference Finals last year. Yes, they are 9.5 games out in the West. Yes, they are in the sixth spot, and yes, they are clinging on by the skin of their teeth from falling into the play-in tournament. They're only a half game up on Golden State, Minnesota, and then they're only one game up on Utah and New Orleans as it stands right now, as we got the All-Star game coming up next weekend. But that is a very, very intriguing scenario, because the Mavericks really have not had a true point guard since Jason Terry. If you want to be completely honest, Luka can play the point once in a while, but when he does, he is kind of playing out of his natural position. He'd be better suited playing a 3 or a 2. The other two would be the two Los Angeles teams. First, let's talk about the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers right now sit 4th in the West, and they are a half game ahead of the Suns, and they are a game and a half behind the still shocking Sacramento Kings for 3rd in the West. They would host a playoff series against the Suns if the playoffs started today. The Clippers are a very interesting dynamic, as they are now clearly the better of the two Los Angeles teams, and not to bury the lead, the other Los Angeles team is the one we're going to talk about here next, and I am going to say that because there's a lot more to unpack with that. But we all know that Chris Paul is not getting any younger. There's a possibility of Paul moving on here in the next year or so, possibly even retiring for all we know. Putting Irving and Paul together, first of all, there's one ball to go around, and certainly Paul is a much better facilitator, whereas Irving is a little bit more of a scorer. I could see a scenario, if that were to happen, where they have Paul at the 1 and maybe move Irving to a 2, and let's see what he can do as maybe an undersized shooting guard and slasher. But that could be very, very interesting, especially with all the changes going through with the Clippers. They've had new ownership within the last decade. They're getting a new arena. They're moving into a new building that's going on the site of the old Forum in the next few years with owner Steve Ballmer. But the one that obviously is the most intriguing, it's the first one that anybody really came out and speculated and were reported, were the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers right now 25-29, lost last night. LeBron will break Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's scoring record here. Very possibly in his next game. He is only 36 behind Kareem for the record, so 37 will break that. Certainly he'll have the record before the All-Star game. And that's a record a lot of us never thought we see broken. There are certain records in the NBA that we will actually never see broken. We will never see somebody get to 11 rings like Bill Russell did. We will never see another team win 8 in a row the way the Celtics did. We will never see somebody pass the consecutive games record. We'll never see another coach earn 9 titles like Phil Jackson did. And the Kareem record was one that we never thought we would see eclipsed, and LeBron stuck with it, and is going to break that record. And there might be others that could come close, but LeBron still might have a couple of years in him. He might, with the way that he's playing, maybe even playing until he's 40, he could put this record so far out there. Could 40,000 be on the table for that? But the idea of Irving and James back together again after they won a title in James's second year back in Cleveland. Remember, the first year James got back to Cleveland, Irving was already there. Irving was the established franchise player, being taken #1 overall a couple of years prior. James and Irving get to the finals. Irving gets hurt. Kevin Love gets hurt. Cavs lose in 6, with James basically carrying that team, with Matthew Dellavedova playing with injuries, Iman Shumpert playing with injuries. Love cannot play. Irving is out. The following year, they win the championship. The year after that, which was the final one of Kyrie and LeBron together, again, we talked about it earlier, it was Durant, signing up with the Warriors and going out and essentially, gravy training to a championship, and then that one went 5, I want to say, and then James, and then the Warriors. I want to say, I can't remember if it was 5 or a sweep the following year, which was Durant's last year with the Warriors before he bolted to Brooklyn. James was actually playing with Isaiah Thomas, I want to say, at that point. We all saw how that blew up, because Thomas was the guy that the Cavs got in the Irving trade, and then also one of the draft picks turned into Colin Sexton, who then gets flipped for Donovan Mitchell. So Kyrie, gives Cleveland their first championship, and now puts them right back into playoff and championship contention by his move and the trade tree and the trickle-down effect. The Cavs don't have Donovan Mitchell at this point. The Cavs aren't in the lottery at that point after LeBron leaves and have their terrible run to where they can stockpile all these first-round picks, to where you've got Colin Sexton that you turn around and flip him. You've got Darius Garland. You've got Evan Mobley, who are the 2 focal points. You don't have the assets to be able to go out and make the trade and grab Jarrett Allen. You certainly don't have the assets to be able to send a king's ransom for Donovan Mitchell, who's playing completely out of his mind when he's healthy. Although last night I want to say he only had 6 points before getting tossed in the dust up, and that truly lit a fire under the Cavs' ass. Even though Memphis was missing Steven Adams, and I honestly cannot remember who else, but they were Jared Jackson, or don't quote me on that. I could be way, way, way off on that. I heard it briefly. I only caught it, but the Cavs took the lead at that point. It was like back and forth. Maybe we're up 2, pushed it all the way out to 17-18 at that point, and then just kind of coasted about the rest of the fourth quarter. If Irving ends up truly going to the Lakers, there is certainly going to be the possibility Russell Westbrook gets moved or gets released, because they are not going to keep a 34-year-old Westbrook on the roster with that kind of cap hit if they're going to be bringing in Irving and paying him whatever money he's owed. It's also the intrigue of those two pairing up, considering the reported toxicity between them the year after they won the championship that led to the split to begin with. Could cooler heads have prevailed, even though LeBron was outspoken against the movie that Irving tweeted about, certainly enough a couple of months ago. So this is going to be extremely interesting where he goes. Where do you think Kyrie Irving ends up here? Do you really even care at this point? Is his ceiling essentially capped? Is his situation not going to get any better? Where if he does get moved to a Western Conference team, do you think it improves their chances? Considering right now he's still got to face either Ja or Jokic in the first or second round of the playoffs, especially if he lands with with a team that's not in the play-in right now. If he goes to the Clippers, he would end up he would meet Jokic in the second round. If he goes to the Suns or the Mavericks, they'll play each other in the first round, and then he would end up getting Ja more than likely in the second round. So let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Do you think it's also kind of tasteless that, for my personal perspective, that I had this piece all ready to go about Tom Brady, as we discussed a couple of days ago, and now I actually have to bump that until tomorrow or Monday because of the of what Irving's now done. So let me know what you guys think. I will be back with you guys here possibly tomorrow, again maybe Monday, with the Tom Brady piece, and we will see you very, very soon. And I promise, again, I will have this lighting fixed if it's a little off for you guys when you're watching the replay. But I will have that fixed here, hopefully, if not tomorrow, certainly by a post I plan on doing next week. Take care. Good night.